Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the research basics that you should know when you're starting your research for the topics you'll be doing in your literature class. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the topic for your paper. And it's very important to get the approval of your topic from your professor. Why? Because you want to make sure you're on the same page as the professor. The professor created the assignment, they're going to be grading the assignment, so you want to make sure you're doing what the professor wants. And so I run my topic by my professor, and I want to make sure that it's not too broad or too narrow, or if I go off on a tangent, that it's a good tangent and not something that the professor doesn't want. So very important. There's nothing worse than starting your research and then realizing that the professor doesn't want what you're looking for. So get approval of your topic from your professor. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to identify proper resources. First thing I do is I see what is the bare minimum that the professor wants, and is there anything that the professor does not want. Okay, so for example, the professor might say you have to have 2 books, or you need to have at least 3 periodical articles, or maybe you can only use 2 websites or whatever. So make sure you understand what that professor wants. And then you want to identify proper resources to help you with your research. And so I'm going to look at books, because books will give you more in-depth information on your topic. And when you're doing book research, you might find some really good ones, criticisms, and maybe you'll get some character studies or books about that story or that piece of literature that you're talking about. So books are very important, really good information. Periodicals give you more recent and in-depth information on your topic. You're going to find a lot of great stuff like magazines, journals, and newspapers, and you'll find some really great resources that talk about literature in general, and very specifically too. So make sure you get some periodicals, and that's probably where you're going to do most of your research, but also some internet websites with additional information on your topic. Very important, but make sure that they're good internet websites. You'll find some really good ones from organizations such as like the Folger Shakespeare Library is very specialized on Shakespeare, and you might get some really good websites from universities and things like that. So find some good internet websites too, but make sure they're legitimate websites. And if you're not quite sure if it's a good or a bad website, check with your professor, check with a librarian, but there's some really good resources out there. You want to take a look at academic journals. Now, academic journals are also called peer-reviewed or academic, scholarly. They're a little bit different than magazine articles because they are written usually by experts in the field. They could be professors or experts in the field. And what happens is there's a review process. It's written, then it's submitted to the academic journal, and it's reviewed by other professors, other experts, to make sure that the research is legitimate and done well. So these are higher level, but you're going to be using these a lot in college, and so get used to looking at academic journals. And for literature, you're going to find a lot of great literature journals out there. And then you want to diversify your resources, okay? Mix it up a little bit. Make sure you have a few books in there, some articles, some good websites. Your professor might have a bare minimum of what you need to do, but you never just want to find the bare minimum and start writing your paper. Get some extra resources and diversify them, mix them up a bit. Now, brainstorming on your topic is very important. So think about the topic you're doing, write down what you know about it, and then as you're doing your research, keep track of different search terms, ideas, concepts, people that tie into your topic. And so my example right here, I am going to be doing some research on Ernest Hemingway and the Lost Generation, which is a literary movement. And so I've done some brainstorming on what I know about it, and then I've added some other stuff that I've come across as I did my research. So you can see I'm all over the place here. I've got Hemingway, Lost Generation, World War I, Paris, Fitzgerald, another writer that's very famous in this movement, Gertrude Stein, John Dos Passos, Sylvia Beach and the Shakespeare and Company bookstore, very important to the Lost Generation. James Joyce, Ulysses, okay, very controversial book. The Sun Also Rises, that was Hemingway's big book in that era, and then The Great Gatsby from F. Scott Fitzgerald. Okay, so as you can see, I'm all over the place. I might not use all my search terms, but you can kind of get an idea of where you want to go, and you can even focus where you want to go by looking at a list of terms that you've created. So keep track of that. Keep your brain on as you're doing your research so you can find these other search terms, ideas, concepts, people, etc. that tie into your topic. These are going to be very important because one search term might find better results than another search term. Okay, you might get different research results. Some might be better, more focused. So very, very important to brainstorm on your topic and to keep track of those search terms that you come across. And then finally, I want to talk about Boolean operators. And Boolean operators are instructions telling the database what to do. You use these with your search terms, and it helps you narrow down your search or expand it, but mostly narrow them down. And basically, you're going to combine your search terms together to find what you're looking for. And you want to use Boolean operators. Now, Google has Boolean operators too. If you go to their advanced search, you'll see the Boolean operators listed there. And so they might be a little bit different than these. These are specifically for the library databases, but they're going to really help you with your research. Now, I'm going to give you the big three right here. There's lots and lots of Boolean operators, but these are the big three that I'm giving you. And I use these in 99.9% of my research, and I find exactly what I'm looking for. And the first Boolean operator I want to show you is quotation marks. And quotation marks help you keep multiple worded search terms or phrases together. It helps keep the words as a phrase. So, for example, Monterey Peninsula College. If I'm doing research on the college, I'm going to put quotation marks around Monterey Peninsula College because I want the database to find those three words together in that order in my research results. You can take the quotation marks off that and it'll search for Monterey Peninsula College together in that order, but it'll also search for those three words separately, and you'll get a lot more results, but many of them will have nothing to do with Monterey Peninsula College. You might get the word Monterey in paragraph 1, the word Peninsula in paragraph 2, and the word college in paragraph 4. Has nothing to do with Monterey Peninsula College, but it comes up in your results. So if you put quotation marks around it, all your results will have nothing but those three words together. You want to use these in your research, though, with certain title, like book titles, or people's names and things like that. So A Movable Feast, that's a book by Hemingway. I'm going to put quotation marks around that because I want to find that very specific title. Or Willa Cather, that's an author. I'm going to put quotation marks around her name. Okay, so quotation marks, very powerful research tool. Another Boolean operator is the word and the word and helps you narrow down your search. Okay, so it also tells the database that these search terms have to be in my results. So the more search terms you put in, the less results you're going to get, but the more focused your search is going to be. That being said, I usually find what I'm looking for with 1, 2, or 3 search terms, and I always start off with one search term and then I build from there. And if you notice my search terms in my example, I keep it very simple. And this is important. You don't want to be putting in questions or long phrases. You want to identify the keywords, and therefore, if you find some results, you can take out a search term and plug something else in and maybe come up with some better results. Okay, so it's easy to kind of take those search terms in and out and change your results. That being said, my example here, let's look at that first one, Isabel Allende and magical realism. So if I do a search for just Isabel Allende on her own, I will come up with, let's say, 1,000 results. Okay, so I have 1,000 results that deal with Isabel Allende. And I'm interested in the literary movement of magical realism that is tied into some of her books. So now I'm telling the database that these two search terms have to be in my results, Isabel Allende and magical realism. And so if I do that, instead of getting 1,000 results, maybe I've narrowed it down to 100 results. Okay, so it's a great way to kind of focus your search. Again, Cannery Row, I put in the word Cannery Row in quotation marks. It's going to search for Cannery Row together. And maybe I come up with, again, 10,000 results dealing with Cannery Row. I'm interested in the analysis of that work, so instead I'll put Cannery Row and criticism, and I narrow it down to just those articles that deal with criticism of that work, and maybe I get 500 results. So those first two, quotation marks and the word and, are the Boolean operators that I use 99% of the time. There's another one I want to show you, though, and it's the Boolean operator or. And this is one that where you can do an either or search, and this actually helps you expand your search a little bit. So I have two examples right here. And at the very first one is My Antonia or O Pioneers and Symbolism. Okay, so you see My Antonia or O Pioneers. Those are two books by Willa Cather, very famous books. So I'm interested in either one of those books and symbolism. Okay, the symbolism that's in either one of those books. So you see that and symbolism, all my search results are going to have the word symbolism in it, but they can either have My Antonia or O Pioneers, or it could have both. Okay, so this helps you expand your search out a little bit. Let's look at the second example here, Lost Generation and Hemingway or Fitzgerald. So if I do a search for the Lost Generation, I get 10,000 hits. If I do Lost Generation and only Hemingway, maybe I narrow it down to 500 results. But if I do Lost Generation and Hemingway or Fitzgerald, now either one of those search terms or both can be in my results, and it might bump it up from 500 to maybe 1,000. So it's a great way to do an either-or search if you have, if you want to do comparative research, or if you have synonyms on a topic. This is a great way to help you out. So now hopefully you're ready to go on and do your research. If you have any questions, run into any problems, check with your professor or feel free to contact me. My email is on the website here, or contact a librarian. We're here to help you out.